Okay. I'd like to open up the marketing committee meeting. Let the record reflect it at 6:30. Laura, would you mind calling a roll for us since the attorney's not here?
No problem. Trustee Burt,
Present.
trustee Galante,
Here.
and trustee Mueller.
Present.
Thank you. Item number 2, consider the approval of the minutes of the Special Economic Development and Marketing Committee held on April 10th, 2019. I believe I'm the only one who was here, so they can't approve? How does that work?
No, you can still vote on it even if you're not.
They weren't in attendance, so they can vote on
They
it.
can vote
Thank
on
you,
it,
Dave.
yes. Yep.
You guys say.
So
second
moved.
or- Okay.
And you have to second.
I second it.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item number 3, discuss citizen survey. Ms. Donna Franke?
Yes, thank you,
Oh,
trustee
look who's
Byrd.
here.
We are, in follow-up to our conversations at the last committee meeting, we are poised to start moving forward on our citizen survey, which by the schedule, we would be putting in the mail sometime in July. We are anticipating a mailing up to 1,700 households in Tinley Park that will be kept separate. We are going to open it up and an online survey so that everybody can weigh in it. However, to maintain the statistical relevance, we're going to be sending it to every nth house. So I did provide for you a copy of the National Research Council's template survey in hopes that you had a chance to kind of take a look and get a sense of the types of questions. It's very comprehensive, obviously. And within that survey, we have the ability to customize up to probably 3 or 4 questions on the 4th page of the survey. So I put in front, in our memo, a couple of sample questions that we could give consideration to with regard to assessing how our residents are, what their preference is on how they receive communication from the village, and also in anticipation of Harmony Square, perhaps getting some feedback from our residents on the types of programs and events that they'd like to see in the plaza. We could add a question or two if that's your will, and so I just wanted to kind of put that on the table and see if, obviously, with questions in a survey like this, in anticipation of policy decisions that you as a board might be facing, could potentially ask a question related to something that's on your mind. So,
Yeah, and again, just to clarify, the memo that was just handed out, that's the one we're operating off of. The question 2 that in the handout is different than the one that was in the agenda packet. Number 1 is exactly the same. So it's a question about how you get your information, and then what type of activities would you like to see in Harmony Square? And there could be, as Donna said, 1 or 2 more, and that's why we're just here to get your feedback. Are there other things that we should be asking?
Okay, thanks. I like these 2 questions. It's very comprehensive. I think that any questions from the other board members? Additional additions to these? Would you like a 3rd question?
Nothing from me.
I don't.
Diane had
I
a
mean, it's-
suggestion, and I
well,
thought it was good.
I was just bringing up before if we should ask about like gaming, learning how people care, but I mean, it seems like this is more, not targeting that, but
Well, yeah, it could be anything. The challenge sometimes with surveys like this, the only thing I'll say is that it can be sometimes hard to ask a comprehensive question. I might, for example, say, if you're gonna write about video gaming, you probably wanna understand everything. Where's the money going towards and who? So it's sometimes hard to boil that down, and that was one of the challenges why we knocked out this question on the vehicle sticker, because, boy, there's just a lot of ramifications. So that's the only thing I just would caution you is you don't want to make it a question that's, would take a 2-page memo to explain because people won't read it.
Right.
So, the 2 questions we suggested, I think, were fairly quick where people can kind of give us some answers, so. Anyway, I mean, Donna, what's the deadline when we need to kind of know this?
Middle of June.
Okay, so I mean, we don't need a final answer tonight, but if there's anything else you think of, just let us know, like, in the next 10 days.
Okay,
Okay.
very good. Item number 4, receive comments from the public. Anyone wish to address the committee? Let the record reflect there are none. I'd like to adjourn the marketing committee meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
I can just go ahead.
Yep, call your meeting.
I'd like to call the finance meeting to order. And I have, do I have to have a motion to?
You don't, we have quorum, you can move right on to the
I don't have
second,
to, okay.
second item, and although two of you weren't here, you can certainly still vote on the approval of the minutes.
Okay. I'd like to get a motion to approve the minutes from the April 10th.
Second? All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Motion carries. The second item on here was to review the financial report from 2019, and Brad's not here, but Michael's going to go ahead and go over that.
Thank you, Chairman Galante. Before you is the financial report that's provided for the month end of April, which is the year-end report. And with the new members on the committee, if there's another format that you would wish to have or additional information, please let us know. We will be glad to provide it in another format or any other information that you would like. For this report, we go through the major topics and the major revenue sources, sales taxes being one of them. And throughout the report, you'll notice that all the revenues on a year-to-date basis are positive. Sales tax, for instance, is up 1.4% from the previous year at $14.1 million. If you look at the general fund, there's primarily three sources of revenues that are primary to that fund. We have approximately $55 million in revenues. Property taxes make up a large portion of it, $21 million. Sales taxes, the various forms of sales taxes, approximately 37%, about $22 million. And then we have fees and licenses, which makes up a smaller amount. But as we proceed in this report, you have home rule sales tax, an increase of 3.9% year-to-date. Use tax up 14%. And we have the income tax up 7.1% year-to-date. Brad then explains the property taxes, which we have an additional $4,000 from the previous year. Video gaming also increases, but to a large extent, it is not as material. It's approximately $477,000 for this fiscal year. Motor fuel taxes is not a part of the general fund, but is its own fund, and that is up by 0.01 or 0.1% at $1.4 million. And with commuter parking, that is approximately the same as the previous year. We are now at the portion which is the graphs, and as you can see, Brett has provided a graph for sales taxes, the revenues for income taxes, property taxes, and the general fund. On the next page are the graphs for fuel tax, hotel tax, communal parking lot, and water fuel revenues. And the thing about these graphs is these are all separate funds, not a part of the general fund. The next page, I think, is one of the 40,000-foot page. This shows the funds, the important funds that we look at throughout the year closely because they're the major funds. You have the general fund, and you will see we have revenues of $54.4 million for the year compared with the expenses of $43.5 million. Please note that that 43.5 will increase as we go through the audit and we have accruals to be done. But the general fund, that's the major fund that we have, again, $55 million. The next fund, important and material fund we have is the water and sewer. This is a separate fund and it is an enterprise fund. The intent of this fund is to pay the expenses from the revenues or the fees from the water. The other fund, the community parking fund, of course, that's also an enterprise fund, but not as material, only $740,000 in revenue. And we also have the hotel tax fund of 1.6 million for this past year. As we go through the report, you can see the activity is increasing for the property taxes, the sales use taxes, and the home rule taxes. The income tax revenues is pretty stable. Then towards the end, we have the monthly comparative revenue report for each of the funds. And also, in back of that, we have the comparative expense report for the 01 fund. And these are the different divisions for, within the general fund. And if there's any questions, we will be glad to attempt to answer them.
Anybody have questions on?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. If there's no other questions, then I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Oh, I'm sorry, public comment. Is there anybody that would like to? Brad said. Brad, have any questions?
We will attempt to
Might be
answer.
here.
That's cute.
If there's no public comment, then I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Seconded?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then we're adjourned. Thank you.
Time is now 6:42. I would like to call the Community Development Committee meeting to order. Present this evening are my fellow board members, Diane Galante and Cindy Berg, so we have quorum. Moving on to our agenda items. Number 2 is consideration of the meeting from April 9th, 2019, Economic Development and Marketing meeting, and a special committee meeting held on April 10th, 2019. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
My second.
Thank you. Motion was properly moved by trustee Berg, seconded by Galante. Is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none. All those in favor of signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. So moved. Motion carries, sorry. This evening, to discuss the Panduit Incentive Agreement, I'm going to turn it over to Patrick Hoban for item number 3.
Thank you, trustee Mueller. So with this one, we've got, this is in our strategic plan. It's a Panduit out there off of Ridgeland. They did a huge demolition project out there. There has been some concept for residential. It does have, it is qualified to do a TIF eligible phase 2 study. There was an environmental phase 1 done. So now they want to know if they can get some assistance doing a phase 2. We've talked to them about a request of $200,000 to cover that. It is, as I mentioned, a TIF eligible expense. There has been allocated $5.5 million whenever the legacy TIF was done to redevelopment plan. Put that aside for assemblage costs, including but not limited to acquisition of land, real personal rights, rights of interest, demolition, building, site preparation, and site improvements. So this would, as again, be a TIF eligible cost. It is in the incentive policy checklist due to its location in the legacy TIF. It is a target development area, and also it is a long-term complex tier 2 economic development strategy number 9 to redevelop this TIF Panduit site. As I said, there has been interest to turn this into a residential project on the line, but to get this kick-started, we're asking to move forward with a TIF incentive agreement, development agreement for $200,000 reimbursable to Panduit to help out with their study. And also Jeff Jennings is here if anyone has any questions from Panduit.
Mr. Chairman?
So we're just looking to discuss this tonight, right? Or are we looking to move it to the board?
So we are working with both Panduit's council and potential developers council. There's been some comments back and forth. The agreement's in pretty good shape. I don't know that we'll have it totally done for the 4th. I think there's a very good shot we could. There's just a couple small issues we're ironing out. I think Pat pointed out, but one, I think an important thing about this TIF agreement is you guys will get probably plenty of TIF agreements as you sit on this committee. So this is, intended to be a pay-as-you-go, meaning that they're only going to receive increment from the properties that get developed. So I think that's important, something to look for as you go forward with these TIF agreements. We just still have some outstanding flow of funds and confidentiality agreements and things like that. Pretty minor issues to the agreement as itself. So I don't, Pat, I think everybody wants to move it forward. I think maybe the best way to do it is if you move it, if you're okay with it, moving it to the June 4th meeting, if we're able to complete it. If not, we'll have it on that last meeting in June for sure. So unless you guys want to see it more or again, we're pretty much ready with it.
Okay, and this is the first time we've done it with residential for a TIF agreement like this.
Since I've been here, yeah.
Yeah. Where it's solely residential?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. I mean, obviously, South Street and North Street is predominantly residential, but this is.
There are some commercial
Yeah,
those
yeah,
properties.
but this is the first one where it's solely residential.
Yeah, and there are some things that, you couldn't do in a residential TIF that you could when it's all commercial. Most of as this property gets developed, the village's investment would be in roads, sewers, things like that, not specifically for building supplies and things like that. So, the TIF statute does recognize residential development and limits what we can, reimburse.
Okay. Questions from the board?
No, did you want me to make a motion?
If you guys are comfortable with that, if you guys could
Are you
just
guys comfortable with that?
move it to the board, or,
We're moving what,
The approval of TIF incentive to the board meeting for June 4th.
yeah, and
You
there'll be
wanna wait, or-
and there'll be a formalized agreement that you would get in your packet.
send it to the board, right?
What's
Right
that?
now, I don't know anything that we're trying to send to the board.
So, yeah, so there would be a final agreement that would go to the board. If you guys are ready for that, you guys would get that on Friday of this week in advance of approval. If you want to see it before that, I could shoot you a draft, the draft reports, once we're done here. But if you're comfortable with that, you'd get the final version, what we'd ask you to vote on Friday, mainline, essentially incorporating the terms that Pat talked about and that I talked about, and then some other, obviously, legal terms that we have in all our TIF agreements, but you'd get that Friday in your packet, unless if you guys want to see it more, we can certainly do that.
So do I have a motion to recommend the approval of this agreement, subject to the changes and stuff, for the June 4th, 2019 meeting?
And if we don't finish June 4th, it'll be on your next meeting.
I'll make a motion for that.
So I have a second?
I'll second
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, item number 4. Patrick Coben was going to review the OPA Playbook Grant Program for us.
So when the mayor took office, he came in and actually offered up, I think, 3 or 4 different downtown redevelopment programs from other communities. And staff was tasked with trying to come up with our own version to breathe life back into downtown Tinley Park. Out of that, just some very large groups got together. We identified 17 different tactics that we could do to try to encourage development. From those 17, going through what was in the Downtown Commission, and then also the Economic and Commercial Commission, they voted up 5 playbook grants. We already had a facade grant, so it was renewing the facade grant. It was also doing a code compliance grant, because we heard from a lot of potential developers that there were issues when it came to installing sprinklers. So we thought that we could help offset that. And then also doing a retail grant, just to try to get some targeted retailers. One that took advantage of that was actually SIP. SIP's a very unique development for the self-serve wine bar, so that was one that qualified. And then also a $5,000 sign grant, and then a landscape grant. The last 2 $5,000 grants or more just for the Beautify the Corridor. The big ones up top, though, were the ones that we get the most demand for. 2 of the projects that have gone through already, the veterinary clinic, you can see, is underway. Then also SIP, I think, broke ground 2-3 weeks ago. You see some movement back there as well. But this is an example of some buildings that were underutilized, and once complete, will be a nice addition to downtown Tinley. So far, we have had 4 that have came through for a variety of different grants, totaling $145,000. $100,000 right now. I'm leaving just about $200,000 left over for the remaining, and there are, I think we've talked to close to 22 different applicants, and so we do have more in the pipeline, and we're talking about some of those tonight. The purpose of this, though, is just to bring everybody up to speed on what the grants were, because we do have one on the agenda.
Thank you, Pat. Any questions for Pat? Item number 5, Oak Park Avenue Playbook Code Compliance Grant request for, and I'm going to butcher this name, so Patrick, do you want to help me out?
Sure, so Robbie Shafi.
Perfect,
And
at
this is their-
17451 Oak Park Avenue?
Yes.
Go ahead, take it, Patrick.
His sister Susan is here tonight, and this was one of them where they went in, actually purchased the property and didn't realize the code compliance issues that were there. So right now, they're gonna go after the code compliance grant, and they're gonna go for the fire alarm. And this one is going to be a $5,375 code compliance grant to install a fire alarm. They did get, I think, over 3 bids to do this. There has been interest in this space, but again, before you can occupy it, working with our fire department, some of the items have to be brought up to code. So one of the reasons we did the code compliance grant was to help offset some of those costs to increase the occupancy and remove some of the vacancy up and down Oak Park Avenue. But this one is not attached to an actual business. This is one just preparing it for a business to go in, where some of the other ones that you've seen before had an actual business attached to it. But the goal of the grants, again, were to get these ready to make it more enticing to fill the vacancies. And this strategic plan checklist wise, it is long-term complex tier 1 and economic development strategy number 4, just seeing ongoing downtown development and reinvestment continue. And so what we're looking for tonight is to seek direction regarding approval of a matching $5,375 code compliance grant for Susan Chaffee, and she has been very patient with us as we move this around. This has not gone through ECC yet. We actually didn't have a quorum at the last meeting, so we have a special meeting scheduled for this Friday to get that done, and then hopefully take this to board next Tuesday as well.
Did the applicant have any comments? Did you have any comments that you wanted to make? Okay. Perfect, thank you. Thanks for working with us. I know it was frustrating. I was at that last meeting that didn't meet quorum as well. Any comments from the board? So do I have a motion to recommend this for approval at the June 4th village board meeting?
I'll
Which
make a
will
motion.
go after the May 31st ECC meeting.
Correct. I will make a motion to approve the matching code grant, code compliance grant for the fire alarm system.
And do we have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item number 6, Oak Park Avenue signage grant request from Ed and Joe's located at 17332 Oak Park Avenue. Once again, Pat?
Thanks. Ken is applying on behalf of Michael Clark, the owner of Ed and Joe's. And if you see in the picture, the current signage that's there says Columbia Hotel, which is cool because it's an old building, but it doesn't actually show off what Ed and Joe's is. This is something that I believe Kimberly worked very closely with the sign company on to bring this up to the design that it is right now. But this is a matching grant, again, it's for beautification of the corridor. And it is for $5,000 matching grant. Each can, hold on, not 5,000, it can be up to 5,000. This is a $2,495 matching grant. And it is, again, meeting the long-term complex tier 1 and economic development strategy number 4 to see ongoing downtown development and reinvestment continue. This is for a current business, and this one has already been approved by our ECC on April 15th. The goal is to get this one the June 4th board meeting as well.
Perfect, thank you, Patrick. Any comments from the board?
I love the taco pizza. This is beautiful. Very nice. Very excited for them.
I would tend to agree. So do we have a motion to recommend the approval of the OPA signage grant to Ed and Joe's?
Second?
Perfect. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Oh, I think this is your last one, Patrick.
No, I've got
Two more.
Two more.
3 more.
Item number 7, review of the Cook County Property Reclassification Program.
Okay, in Cook County, they assess things a little bit differently than the rest of the state of Illinois. And so the reason that we're going to go over this is because we're going to have quite a few of these reclassification requests that come through. In Cook County, the commercial properties are assessed at a 25% level, and then the residential properties are assessed at a 10% level, compared to the rest of the state of Illinois, which is all 33 1/3. Because of this, our multiplier in Cook County is always higher, because the goal of the multiplier is to get it closer to the 33 1/3, which never really happens when you're at 25 or 10. So Cook County does have a variety of reclassifications that you can get, depending on if you're doing strictly commercial, if it's industrial, over $2 million, under $2 million investment, in order to offset these. And what it'll do is it'll knock a commercial rate down to a residential rate for up to 12 years as it's graduated. These can be renewable as well. One of the bigger projects that we've done recently that utilize this is our Hillwood spec building. M Block, that is over on the south east side of town, is a 1 million square foot building, employs quite a few people. They were considering leaving our area. We ended up renewing theirs, and because of that, they also, the developers Hillwood, built a 300,000 square foot spec building next door, which is also receiving the reclassification. So whenever we do these reclassifications, it's just a way really to, I mean, we call it an incentive, but it just makes it even with Will County a lot of times. So there are a variety, like I said, there's no real request on this one. It's more for informational purposes. I did put together a slide that shows what the difference can be, and it's normally close to like a 60% difference in the tax rate. So that's why whenever a lot of people are looking at Tinley Park, they're always asking for land on the Will County side. And actually on that map, you can see everything in yellow is a Cook, and then everything that's on the southwest is Will, and you can see how developed it is commercially on the Will County side. Like, that's very easy to sell compared to Cook. So we've seen quite a few reclassification requests.
Thank you, Patrick. Any questions from the board? All right, we'll move on to our first one of those. So item number 8, I believe, which is a 7B reclassification request for the Marriott Hotel at 18300 95th Avenue. Once again, Patrick.
So this is going to be for 2 hotels. It's the Marriott, it's a Courtyard, and then also a Residence Inn. And it's planning to employ 36 jobs at the Courtyard and 25 jobs at the Residence Inn. The project will also feature 269 parking stalls. They want to break ground before this winter. This does meet our economic development strategic plan regarding trying to get investment off LaGrange Road. We did this earlier. We designated the area as blighted in order to qualify for this. One of the first things you have to do before you can even ask for reclassification is to show that it's in a designated area. Currently, Bremen Township, Rich Township, and also our TIF districts are designated. So we ended up designating the Harlem Avenue corridor and also this LaGrange area for this very reason. We're hoping that these hotels will also generate more restaurant demand and kick off some more development in the area. This is also a but-for, meaning that without this reclassification, there's no way that they could do this. Again, if we go back to the map of Cook County, you can see almost all of our hotels stop in Will County. We have 9 in Will, and the one that we have in Cook is attached to our convention center. Like I said before, strategic plan-wise, this meets the economic development strategy number 6, the Grange Road infrastructure. It'll create a lot of jobs. It will also create some hotel motel tax, which we like, and strengthen our tourism cluster. This has not gone to ECC either. We're hoping to get this on the agenda for this Friday the 31st. So we're looking for direction to try to get this on the next board meeting, of course, pending our ECC meeting.
And can you just elaborate a little bit on some of the infrastructure challenges of that site?
So I wish I had, yeah, good. So infrastructure-wise, you're seeing a lot of green grass that's out there, farmland. There is some infrastructure from the other hotels on the south there. The rest of it's all on the north side. So at some point, we're going to have to figure out how to get this down. We have talked about doing a study. I think that's in the budget right now to figure out what that's going to cost. There has not been an ask at this time for that. But right now, without the beginning reclassification, there's going to be no deal, period. So the point was to try to get this moving. We're also working with MWRD to locate the sewer, so we can get it connected on the south side. And then from there, possibly extensions from the north. But yeah, there is zero infrastructure. That's why it is actually in our economic development strategic plan to generate some projects to push infrastructure there.
And would that study be in time for their groundbreaking kind of expectations?
Not sure if that will be done because we can get we're hoping to work with MWRD to get it from the south before pulling it down. So even if it's just a temporary use, the thing about coming from the south, you see that huge radio tower, I doubt that's going to develop anytime soon. Also to the south of there is, which you can't see, is a Family Harvest Church, which is probably not going to use as much infrastructure as commercial that's being reserved.
Thank you, Patrick. Any other questions?
It's not a study to it, it's actually a design.
Okay.
We have in the budget for our engineers to design the infrastructure, so it's not a study, just to be clear.
To come from the north?
Right, so
Okay.
we're looking at Robinson Engineering to show us the design, which then ultimately would provide a cost for what it would take to get there.
Gotcha. Thank you, Kimberly. Any questions?
Nope.
Do I have a motion to recommend a resolution to support of the Marriott 7B reclassification request at the full board meeting June 4th after it goes through the ECC on May 31st?
I'll make a motion for the 7B reclassification.
No second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item number 9. Now it's your last one.
Last one. Okay, this one is for RG Riley and Sons. This is a Class 6B SER. This is one that is a sustainable emergency relief. These are for companies that have been in the area and for, I think, at least 10 years, 10 years or more. Mike Riley's actually here to answer any questions. Kevin and I toured his facility not too long ago, a month or so ago. Very, very large facility, and it does have land out back. I'm trying to convince him to add on to do a little expansion later on. But in the meantime, because he has been here for over 10 years and does employ 25 full-time jobs, he's requesting a reclassification on his current facility. And we did do the similar thing for Aries next door to the east. And again, this one is incentive policy checklist wise. It's in a targeted area because it is inside of our mental health center TIF district. And anyone that goes down Duvan Drive, we have done in the past quite a few reclassifications for this area just because of the age of the buildings that are there. And this one has been approved, recommended for approval by the ECC at the April 15th board meeting. So we're looking for a direction regarding taking them to the June 4th village board meeting.
I think did you guys have plans for what you were going to do with the tax savings? In terms of reinvesting into the buildings?
Well, there'll be reinvestment in the building, but we're also looking to grow the employee base and to grow the inventory. So that's what the savings would go towards.
Perfect. Thank you. Questions from the rest of the committee?
Not at this time.
So do we have a motion to recommend? Let me read this one, sorry. Motion to recommend, sorry, all those sorts. Recommend the support for a Cook County 6B Sustainable Energy Emergency Relief classification.
I'll make a motion for the 6B Sustainable Emergency Relief.
Thank you.
No second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item number 10, master poll agreement between the village and AT&T. Kimberly Clark from the Community Development Department will lead this discussion. Oh, Dan's going to do it? Sorry.
Yeah, so in April 2018, there was a Small Cell Wireless Facilities Deployment Act, which is a law passed by the state of Illinois. This kind of established the statewide regulations on small cell co-locations in the public right-of-way, essentially requiring that we have to approve them in the right-of-way if they follow certain parameters. It kind of preempts the villages in a lot of ways, including in rent, approval time, again, where we can put them. This is kind of, we passed some laws, in July 2018, the village passed a law that helped us retain a lot of basically as much control as we could in our rights-of-way. This is kind of that last step to that, which is a master pull agreement. This is with specific carriers, so there's kind of 4 major carriers out there typically that would co-locate on our poles. This is for AT&T specifically, and this is basically a master lease that will let them on any of our utility poles. There's not too much room for negotiation in these. We basically got kind of the maximum that we could. They know what the law was, we know what the law was, so there really wasn't too much negotiation. In a perfect world, we'd get more rents or higher permit fees or something like that. These are for 5-year terms, which I believe is required by the state law, that basically it has to be for 5-year terms on these master pull agreements. So after every 5 years, if the rent goes up or the laws change or something, we can come back and renegotiate this as it goes. This will be the master agreement, and then they'll come back with kind of individual supplements for each pull that they decide to go on. And then they submit things like bond, tell us what pull they're gonna go on, submit the bond, submit fees, and building permits for each one, and that'll be approved administratively. So this is, again, based off the Illinois Municipal League's model agreement with just some minor changes. We worked with Patrick and his team on this, as well as Public Works had some input and stuff as well as what they wanted to make sure they had in terms of information. So we're looking to get this approved by June 4th. I know AT&T has been looking to move forward with putting up some small cell antennas and improve service in the village. So we're just looking to move forward with the agreement.
Now, would we have to create additional agreements with the other 3 carriers, or?
Yes, so as the other carriers come forward, the same thing would happen. They would renew after 5 years. I believe those would come back for you as well. But as each carrier comes, they would come back before you guys. So Sprint, Verizon, when they each come, you'll see a new one. Unless something changes, they'll probably look pretty similar to this one, though, or the same.
So remind me why we went, AT&T came to us first? I can't remember.
Yeah, they're kind of the big dog in this race. They
And the others
wrote a lot of the state.
will still come forth.
They wrote a lot of the state laws, so they're kind
Yeah.
of the first one pushing to roll these out. And they played nice. They gave us time to draft it and go back and forth on it. But they came to us looking to go on our polls. So this is kind of step 1 before they can go on our polls.
Thank you, Dan.
Yep.
Any questions? Do I have a motion to recommend resolution of support of the master poll agreement between the village and AT&T?
Want to go?
I make the motion.
Second?
Perfect. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item number 11 is a proposed text amendment pertaining to the village zoning code's masonry requirement. Kimberly, will you take this one?
Chairman. So staff is currently working with a consultant to update our comprehensive building codes. And as part of this process, we are recognizing there's certain sections that are currently in our local building code that are more appropriately regulated through the zoning code, because we're looking at aesthetics here. It's not a construction question, it's more of the community regulating commercial development and requiring certain masonry. So typically you do see these regulations within a zoning code, because the zoning code also has the authority created by the Zoning Board of Appeals or Plan Commission to review these requests and also offer variances for them. Usually, these are coming forward because there is a new development, and so it makes sense that it all gets reviewed under one committee. Currently, with it being in the building code, the committee that would review a request for a variation of the materials would be at the Community Development Committee, but then they would be going to Plan Commission for their overall site plan approval. So it just makes sense to streamline this and make it a one-stop shop in front of the Plan Commission or Zoning Board of Appeals, which then ultimately will be reviewed by the village board. So our first request would be to take this section out of the code, of the building code, and place it into the zoning code for the masonry construction. And if you aren't aware, we regulate residential properties currently that they have to have first floor masonry, and then the non-residential properties has a percentage based on the size. So that section is what we're gonna be putting into the zoning code. In addition, as we review these things, we're recognizing that maybe there's some other ways that we can regulate aesthetics, but be more business friendly, and that is particularly with our large industrial spec buildings. Patrick Hoban mentioned over on the southeast side of town where we have M Block building, Hillwood. I mean, we're talking buildings that are about 1 million square feet that currently would have to have 25% masonry. This type of construction is, you're seeing these tilt-up concrete panels. This is kind of what's typical being used for this development. And we'd like to review that masonry requirement specifically for these very large buildings and possibly eliminate that or modify it so it makes more sense. We have, for your reference, some of the neighboring communities and how they regulate these. Everyone is different. Again, it's community by community. But we've seen throughout town that these large industrial buildings, it's just not economical for them to do some of this. But there's other things that we can do. We can do things such as design guidelines that also address the scale and the mass of the building, and it's something these industrial guys are accustomed to doing. And they can, you know, for instance, you have a roof line, you can make them break it up every so many 100 feet, so you're not getting that big, massive wall look. But that's more cost effective than having a masonry requirement. So we'd like to move forward, working with Plan Commission and presenting some of these modifications. The first one would be removing the building code requirement of masonry and putting it into the zoning code, and then presenting some potential adjustments to that masonry for larger industrial buildings, and potentially looking at some guidelines as an alternative method to help control the aesthetics.
Great.
Thank you. This looks pretty outdated, Facebook, on our code. It didn't work. Thanks for streamlining that, making it a lot easier.
Sure.
Any other questions?
No questions.
So yeah, just so you guys know, we're gonna be taking this then to the Plan Commission. Do I have a date on here? I think in June. We'd like to take it to them.
Probably June 6th, I think. Are they Thursday still?
Yes, June 6th.
Okay.
Moving on to item number 12. Item number 12 is a proposed text amendment pertaining to the village zoning code's lighting requirements. Kimberly again?
Yes, so again, staff is looking at our zoning ordinance, and currently, we don't have in the budget to make a comprehensive update to address some of the inadequacies, and so we are addressing those things that we feel are most in need to assist the development in the community. So one of the things in particular that we've noticed is we have a section in our code that is regulating performance standards for all non-commercial, or excuse me, commercial uses, and one of those issues is the issue of glare. We have the very basic limitation of the light level being cut off at the property line, but there's nothing else really guiding the aesthetics and the design of that. And many of these companies, as they're building new buildings, are doing well with their light, but we have nothing to really enforce some of the concerns that other communities are addressing through some design guidelines. So we're looking just to add some more language in there that would help a developer coming in know exactly what we're looking for in a photometric plan and give them some guidance. There is research out there, especially from professional organizations such as the Illuminating Engineering Society. They have published model ordinances that municipalities can reference. I have worked with some of these and am familiar with them. And in particular, when we're looking at these lighting ordinances, we want to look at parking lot pole heights. We want to look at the creation of acceptable average light levels, not just at the property line. And we also recognize there are unique uses in our community we want to be sensitive to, and that would be our car dealerships as one. They have a very unique lighting level requirement based on the nature of their operation. So this ordinance would be sensitive to those businesses, as well as gas stations are another one that, due to security and their hours, have different lighting needs. So we'd like to have the direction to move forward with a text amendment to the zoning ordinance to create some more consistent current industrial lighting standards and within our zoning code.
Perfect. Any questions? So do I have a motion to recommend the approval of the lighting text amendments as presented by Kimberly?
I'll make a motion for the lighting.
I'll second.
Perfect. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item number 12, receive comments from the public.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just going to run through a couple items here real quick. Going back to item number 4, review of the Oak Park Avenue playbook. Well, actually, I'll kind of address this, items 4 through 6 and 7 through 9, kind of all in a lump. But the first one, on item number 5, regarding the property at 17451 Oak Park Avenue. In the presentation, in the report, it mentioned something about that some of the code requirements were not known in advance of closing. And so it brought up a question that I had raised a long time ago about whether or not there was a mechanism to advise potential property purchasers during the due diligence process. I mean, obviously, you're buying a property, there's and I mean no offense by this, but there's an expectation that somebody purchasing property has to do their own due diligence. However, it's common for people to purchase a home, purchase a property, and then they just don't know what that is, and then they either run afoul of the village because they go ahead anyway, or they then have to go through a lengthy process. So I'm curious whether, or I would suggest, if there's nothing currently in the works, that there should be some sort of mechanism for advising the people during that process. I believe we keep a inventory of especially commercial properties that are for sale, and I would hope that we stay in tune with those as they go through the market process. So I think it would be relatively easy enough to, if not advise them of the potential code compliance issues that they might run into, the specific ones that might be known, or at a minimum, highly recommend that they consult the building department, zoning department. Now, I personally don't know if that already exists. If it does, that's great. If it doesn't, I would recommend that. I do know that there was a recent meeting of real estate professionals at the library not too long ago. I will admit I only got about halfway through it. I didn't see the entire thing. But I think the real estate professionals, that would be a great group of people to connect with to, if nothing else, make sure that they are advising their clients that they should go through that process. And again, lumping in items 4 through 6, 7 through 9, with respect to the Oak Park Avenue Playbook Grant Program, as well as the Cook County tax reclassifications. I'm not expecting an answer right now, although if someone has one, it would be great. But for either of those, have we ever rejected a request? Does anyone know whether we have rejected any of those requests? Okay, all right. So I don't know if that indicates that we have a great vetting process up front through the staff. I would hope that's the case. So something doesn't actually go to application unless, it has a reasonable chance of being approved. I would hope that's the case. I would hope that we're not just rubber stamping these. And along those lines, I would be curious for what reasons we might reject them, in particular the Cook County tax reclassification. Are there any reasons why we might reject them?
Well, fact check, maybe in the building's
Go ahead.
disrepair or
Yeah,
something?
I'd say use, I mean, overall
Yeah,
use, so
use.
yeah, they are
Yeah.
vetted before they get to this level. So if
Okay.
somebody brings a use for, let's just say Kmart, that we're not interested in, yeah, we will not play.
Okay. So,
Well, and we also had, Patrick, correct me, we had a request from a well-known fast food chain a couple of years ago that they had asked for it after their plans were approved, and so, I mean, I think there's been a couple occasions where we said no.
We said no before it got to this level.
Yeah.
okay,
yes.
good. I mean, personally, business,
Yeah.
smart business, if there's an opportunity for that, you ask for it, right? I mean, why not? Same thing goes with developers asking for incentives, you know, that's what you do. So in particular for the Marriott Hotel development, as it's a greenfield development, and I noticed in the report, it's as Mr. Hoban said, it's a but-for, and their position is that it would not be a viable development if they didn't get the reclass. With the fact that there are infrastructure challenges, mostly that there is no infrastructure, is there potential, has it been discussed, if the, well, first of all, I didn't hear whether it was discussed who would be paying for any infrastructure, whether that would be part of the development, or whether the village would be putting that down. Has that been decided or considered?
That ask has not been made.
Okay. So to that end, if the village is paying for it, would there be a plan to, for there to be a recapture?
Generally, I can add, generally there is recapture in
Okay.
most of our agreements, unless, you know, that gets negotiated as part of something else, but generally our standards have recapture. It's
Okay.
been a long-standing policy of the village to have recapture.
Okay. Respectfully, could I have a little bit extra time?
I have no problem.
Yeah, I don't think that's supposed to be on a committee meeting.
No,
Even better.
We're able to speak freely, all of us.
We'll keep
It's
it,
a
we'll
committee
keep it
meeting.
short, though.
Yeah.
Thank you. So on the Duvan Drive, a sustainable emergency relief request, that makes sense. I'm very familiar with the Duvan Drive property. I would just make one statement here, and I don't expect any feedback on it. I just have been an advocate in the past for connecting in a very tangible way the two parts of that TIF. Right now, we have the Duvan Drive portion, which is north of the tracks, and then we have the rest of the Tinley Park Mental Health Center. And a lot of the proposals that are out there right now, really, there's no connection to the two. I'm an advocate for, and I realize that this is a huge infrastructure piece here, of connecting the two, in particular, bisecting the mental health center with a north-south, bridging the railroad tracks there, connecting it to Duvan Drive. In my personal opinion, I think that would add walkability, accessibility. That property, the mental health center, is an island out there, as everybody knows the challenges with it. But there's a lot of focus on redeveloping the mental health center. Duvan Drive Industrial Park is part of the same TIF. And while there are many requests for these reclassifications coming through, I think that there should be an effort to connect the two, which would essentially make them all one property and revitalize Duvan Drive, carry it right along with. And so I'll just kind of leave that out there for that. With respect to the text amendment for masonry, I will just say that I think that's an excellent idea. I think that's, it's an excellent example of rationalizing the code to gain efficiencies in the process overall. Whoever came up with that, I think it's great. And to the extent there are any other opportunities to do so, I absolutely encourage that to happen. I just do have one question because I wasn't sure from the report when I read. As currently proposed, is that a one-for-one? It's a lift and shift, move it out of the building code into the zoning code? Okay, all right.
The potential modifications for the brick requirement for the industrial would be another component of that.
Okay, so it's not a matter of eliminating that, it's moved from here to there?
With a minor.
Okay, that's great.
And they have a committee also, zoning. Anyone can put
Yep.
input in anytime,
That's great.
which we appreciate. Thank you.
All right, I just have, I have one more point, and I appreciate the committee being patient here. There's a property at 48 acres on 191st between Panduit and the Brookside Marketplace, the former Greystone Golf Course. It's currently zoned ORI. And I'd be interested to know what's currently the status of that, to the extent anyone knows. And also, my understanding is that there have been inquiries about building warehousing, essentially, and take this with a grain of salt, but, and that there have been some obstacles to that. So I'm curious about whether, in fact, I know that the vision for that is more development such as Panduit, and I think that would be wonderful. I don't know whether there currently exists a market for that. I don't do that professionally. And if there is the thought that there's a market for it, I'd be interested to know whether we're actively, we have anybody on the hook for that, or if we're just hoping that it happens. So I don't actually expect an answer on that one there. I'm just kind of tossing that out for consideration. And my final point here with respect, and this is for an earlier committee meeting, so, but I know it's the same folks here. I just wanted to say that for the Finance Committee, it's been discussed in the past. I've brought it up, and it hasn't really gone anywhere. I will give my opinion that the reports that the village puts out, while PDF and the format that they're currently in is accessible, it's searchable, and particularly I'm talking about the budget and the vendor reports. For anybody who's tried to actually do something with that in terms of any sort of analysis, comparative analysis from one period to another, it's impossible. I have very sophisticated tools that I use in my job, and the format of both the budget and the vendor reports, extracting them from each file month to month, they are in a slightly different format each time. You can't even, each month requires a considerable amount of work just to get it in data format. I would highly recommend that the village consider, in addition to the form they're putting it in, putting it available in either CSV format, Excel format, or even in PDF, but stripped of all the headers and footers and all of that, just in a straight PDF table. That would really increase the usability for the public. So I'll just leave that one out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Any other comments from the public? Seeing none. Item number, I guess, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded? Do we need a vote on that or no?
All in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
Thank
Thank you.